Religion often presents itself as the foundation of morality, a moral compass meant to guide people toward goodness. But history reveals a deep irony. Messages of love, compassion, and peace often walk hand in hand with judgment, oppression, and conflict. Wars, executions, discrimination, and divisions have frequently been carried out in the name of God and absolute truth. While religious teachings preach tolerance, followers have often turned differences into reasons to condemn. This contradiction doesn't stem from human nature itself, but from the way religion shapes morality through authority and blind faith. When morality is forced to serve dogma, it stops being compassion and becomes a tool of power. When someone believes that right and wrong are predetermined by a higher power, they no longer feel the need to think for themselves or take responsibility for their actions. Religion creates a middleman between people and their conscience, turning morality into obedience rather than understanding. Instead of considering the real-world consequences of their actions on others, many believers only worry about whether something is a sin or if it offends God. As a result, morality gets reduced to rituals, while personal responsibility is replaced with submission. When morality comes from an external authority instead of within, people stop trusting their own ability to judge right from wrong. And that's when their moral freedom is quietly taken away. When religion becomes the foundation of moral judgment, true ethics often gets overshadowed by rituals and rigid rules. Acts like eating certain foods, dressing a particular way, or following specific ceremonies are treated as measures of goodness, even though they have little to do with compassion or justice. This creates a distorted sense of morality, where breaking arbitrary rules is seen as worse than causing real harm. Someone can be judged for loving the wrong person, but forgiven for cruelty, simply because they repented. In this system, morality is no longer about kindness, empathy, or consequences. It's about compliance. Dogma replaces critical thought, and ritual becomes a substitute for genuine ethical behavior. Guilt and fear are two of the most powerful tools religion uses to maintain control. By making people feel ashamed of their natural desires, private thoughts, or honest doubts, it keeps them in a constant state of self-surveillance. Instead of encouraging personal growth, guilt breeds anxiety and submission. Fear of divine punishment turns morality into something people perform for approval rather than live with integrity. When guilt and fear dictate behavior, individuals are no longer acting from empathy or conscience. They're obeying out of pressure. This quiet, invisible control is what makes these tools so effective and dangerous. One of the most dangerous aspects of religious morality is the idea that wrongdoings can be erased through rituals like confession, repentance, or prayer. This creates a moral escape hatch, where harmful actions are excused as long as the right words are spoken or the proper rituals are performed. Instead of fostering accountability, this system often encourages irresponsibility. People may judge others harshly for their sins, while forgiving themselves for similar acts, simply because they follow religious procedures. This moral exemption weakens true ethical responsibility, turning morality into a loophole rather than a standard of behavior. When morality is dictated by rigid rules rather than personal reflection, it breeds moral laziness. Instead of thinking critically about right and wrong, people simply follow what is written in a book or preached by an authority figure. This obedience creates a shortcut. No need to empathize, question, or understand the real impact of one's actions. It's easier to repeat doctrine than to take moral responsibility. Over time, this erodes independent moral judgment. People stop listening to their own conscience and rely on external commands, mistaking compliance for goodness. Religion has a dangerous ability to turn acts of cruelty into perceived acts of virtue. When actions are framed as God's will, people can feel righteous while causing harm. Judgment, exclusion, and even violence can be carried out with a clear conscience if they are wrapped in sacred language. Someone can shame, reject, or condemn another person and genuinely believe they are doing something moral. In any other context, these would be recognized as abuse or injustice. But when justified by faith, they are often excused, defended, or even celebrated. This is how religion can legitimize cruelty without question. True morality doesn't come from obedience. It comes from conscious choice. When people are free to think, question, and reflect, their moral actions are rooted in empathy and understanding, not fear or obligation. Without rigid dogma dictating right and wrong, individuals learn to evaluate actions based on their real impact on others. They help because they care, not because they're told to. They act with integrity, not out of guilt. This kind of morality is stronger and more resilient because it's chosen, not imposed. Free thought allows morality to evolve, adapt, and grow alongside human understanding, something religion often resists. Religion often sustains its power not through love or reason, but through fear. It tells people they're inherently flawed, broken, or in danger without divine protection. Fear of hell, divine punishment, or social rejection keeps many from questioning or leaving. This fear becomes a leash, invisible but powerful. It shapes behavior, silences doubt, and makes obedience feel like safety. Instead of trusting their own moral compass, people submit to authority because they've been taught that disobedience equals danger. By keeping fear alive, religion ensures control. And as long as people fear questioning, they remain trapped in a system that benefits the institution more than the individual. Real morality doesn't come from fear, blind obedience, or sacred rules. It comes from the freedom to think, question, and choose with awareness. When people act out of empathy, understanding, and shared humanity, not because they're being watched or threatened, they build a stronger ethical foundation. Freedom allows individuals to take real responsibility for their actions, instead of hiding behind divine commands. Awareness helps them see the true impact of their choices on others. This is where genuine morality thrives, not in obedience to a higher power, but in conscious, compassionate action, rooted in human connection. Religion often claims to make people moral, but in reality, it can weaken personal responsibility, encourage blind obedience, and justify cruelty. True morality doesn't need divine permission. It needs courage, awareness, and empathy. The real path to a better world starts when we dare to question inherited beliefs, trust our own moral compass, and choose kindness because it's right, not because it's commanded. Let's build a society where ethics grow from understanding, not fear. Where freedom of thought is celebrated, not punished. Where morality is a conscious choice, not a ritual.